Hi everyone, I have something very interesting for you today. You know, the earthquake swarm, that massive, long-lasting earthquake swarm over several weeks is still there, but it is gradually dying down. If you look at this is the latest diagram where we see the number of earthquakes are decreasing. They're still happening in this area where we've seen all the clusters. So it's not over yet. It can at any time increase again, but it could also die down. So guys, it's 50-50, right? The scientists know that they don't know. And the interesting part about this is if you look at how Santorini looks, this is a crater. This is an ancient crater, and the island basically has been blown up by an eruption, and that's why it looks like how it looks. So it has been rumbling under Santorini a little bit also, and scientists think that the current rumbling has been caused by a magma intrusion coming from the magma chamber underneath Santorini. So it was forming a magma dike underground towards the island of Amorgos. But what would happen? And I'm not saying that this is very likely right now. We could see something at Nea Kameni, that little island in the middle of Santorini, in the near future maybe, because according to scientists, that volcano there has been activated. But we haven't seen a cluster swarm right there that would say, I'm erupting. No, but let's just talk about that island of Santorini. What if Santorini were to erupt? What if that magma that you see in the magma chamber underneath would reach the surface right where Santorini is? Because the recent waves of earthquakes that we've seen in the Aegean Sea has hit the island of Santorini quite hard right now. Residents were scared. They were leaving the island. They said, well, if we see another big earthquake like we did in 1959, a 7.7, we can survive that if we're getting some help, but we cannot survive a volcanic eruption. And that's why many were leaving voluntarily. So hundreds, thousands, over 24,000 tremors most likely have hit the island, with quite a few over magnitude 5 and many in the 4s and in the 3s. So it has triggered this panic amongst inhabitants, but also in Turkey, they were worried that something might happen, something might collapse underwater, that they could see a tsunami, and they have been preparing quite well. And Santorini is this famous tourist island with 3.5 million tourists coming every year. So lots of disaster has happened there in terms of how will the tourism industry react to this in the upcoming season? There are seasoned seismologists and scientists, volcanologists that are saying almost 100% of buildings on the island are having problems. There was such a construction boom. They're not safe on these cliffs. And I just reported about this. Watch this other video where Atlantis says for 1,500 euros per night, we're risking the lives of our guests. And you know, there's pools in the cliffs, and it really looks quite scary. And also that famous cable car that goes down the cliff to the old port, they have investigated this and assessed the damages from this current rumbling on the island. So this has some instabilities and needs some fixing if they can fix it. And there's also a major risk of landslide that would hit that old port where the cable car goes down. And at one time, there's over 2,000 people down there in that port. So they're thinking about restricting this. If you want to learn more, I've made a video about this. But now let's focus on the volcano, on the Santorini caldera. Santorini, once a huge volcano that erupted almost 4,000 years ago, like 3,600 years ago. So we know at the beginning, the Greek scientists believed, oh, that earthquake swarm is purely tectonic. The Turkish scientists were quicker. They said right away that plate tectonics cannot explain the phenomenon and that magma movements are responsible for this. And they do have detected magma movements. So some scientists are saying that could indicate a forthcoming eruption in the region. So guys, we want to look into this. What would actually happen if the Santorini volcano erupts? According to scientists, if Santorini erupts, the consequences would not only affect the Aegean Sea and that region, like mostly Greece and Turkey, No, but the entire planet. And I've said that before, the supervolcano Campi Flegrei. I'll put the video in the end screen because it's very interesting. I made that last year and I made the headline, only 74 days of food left. And you might wonder, well, if a volcano in Italy erupts, why does the world have 74 days of food left? Watch the video. And also Santorini would affect the entire planet, leading to a drastic increase in droughts. So you might wonder why droughts, right? So especially Turkey is raising some concerns. I mean, no wonder more than 24,000 earthquakes have been recorded there since basically January 26th, very close to Santorini, at shallow depth and a little deeper down, so basically between 2 and 25 kilometers in depth, and they have been felt in Turkey as well. So that's why the Turkish government has basically raised the same concerns as the Greek government did, and that's why the government in Athens, the capital, has declared a state of high alert, a state of emergency. And many scientists have spoken about something for a very long time, like a volcanic eruption in the region that could generate earthquakes and even tsunamis. And we did have a tsunami in 1959, quite a tall tsunami, waves up to 25 meters. But most of them are phenomena of local consequences only, and they would probably not be super serious. Only if there was, for example, another 7.7 magnitude earthquake at Santorini that could trigger something bigger, or a collapse of the Colombo underwater volcano, something like that. But the real big consequence, if there is a major eruption at Santorini, that it would cause an intense drought, because in general, volcanic eruptions cause extraordinary droughts if they're big enough. Depends on their size. They can do this locally by covering everything in ash, making fields and agricultural areas unusable for quite an amount of time, and for a very long time if the lava flows over it. Tsunamis and earthquakes are more regional, but droughts affect the whole planet at the same time. And what does that mean? Well, droughts mean economic crisis, famine, and worse. And worse. We've seen this during the virus, that people were starting to fight over toilet paper. That was absolutely insane. So imagine this is food. And the weird thing is, I want to speak about the toilet paper just for a short period. People were asking me, what would you invest if there was ever, a worldwide downturn or whatever? And that was maybe in 2018 that someone asked me, and I said, let me think about, because many people say, well, fast food, people will always eat like McDonald's or something like this. They will always drink Diet Coke. And I said, toilet paper. Wow, was I right, guys? I should have bought toilet paper shares at that time. But let's talk about Santorini. So experts are recalling and are reminding us that we have dozens of active volcanoes around the world, and some of them are very large and therefore very dangerous in many aspects. Maybe you remember in 1991 in the Philippines, the Pinatubo volcano, when this guy erupted. This was the biggest eruption in 130 years in the world. That was bad. So the air temperature had suddenly dropped by half a degree, 0.5 degrees, and dams emptied. No water anymore. So in Turkey, for example, they had no electricity for the first time that they're usually getting from Bulgaria. In the United States and in Europe, they had to take measures to save water. You might wonder, why do they have to save water? We get to that. So let's turn to the present for a moment. After we have this example in the past, experts are pointing out that the volcano on the island of Santorini, and here it comes, guys, is 15 times bigger than Pinatubo. 15 times. And Pinatubo already had consequences for the US. and Europe and many other countries. So imagine 15 times bigger. We're always talking about Yellowstone. The whole world thinks we're all going to die if Yellowstone's going to erupt. But I keep telling you, there's another super volcano, Campi Flegrei, that is really rumbling badly right now. And I just released a video, by the way, guys, check this out. People were in a school, like an academy, something like university, I would even say. They felt dizzy. They felt like they need to faint for several months without anybody investigating it, without anybody giving them a warning. And we just heard yesterday that they found CO2 emissions in buildings and basements in the gym of that school. And now they're trying to do something against it, and they're doing testing. And it's in a widespread area, and it's coming from the volcano. And people were exposed to it for over 2 months, although that school is right there where the most active crater is with these active fumaroles. So watch that story, the videos in the end screen, and I have playlists about all these volcanic areas. So 15 times bigger, let's not forget that. So the island of Santorini is also, according to various theories, of course we don't know that, is the place where the civilization of Atlantis collapsed, probably because of a volcanic eruption. So they're saying that this happened like before the volcano erupted around 1600 BC. The island was the center before that eruption of trade in the Mediterranean. Like ships from the Black Sea, Russia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean have unloaded their goods on the island. It was, at one time, it had the richest city of the time that was located on Santorini. Basically, all money and all trade was passing through Santorini. But then, after the volcanic eruption, and I'm not saying a volcanic eruption, the volcanic eruption, a third of the island was submerged. And that's why it looks a little strange right now. The biggest volcanic eruption in the last 10,000 years after the Tambora eruption is Santorini. I would really like, maybe now more people know, but I would like to have interviewed people, tourists that come to Santorini in Greece, or to Greece as a general, and saying, well, did you know that? Do you know that there's many underwater volcanoes? Do you know that there's tsunami risks, earthquake risk, landslide risk, when they're all taking their selfies on the cliffs by these pools? It's called Instagram Island. Do they know that? I bet you many don't. Because if you go down to that port and a landslide comes, you're trapped. That's it. So if Santorini erupts now, it will have a huge effect on the global, I can't say the word because we're getting this banner underneath the video from YouTube that will educate us what's changing that and what's doing that. But it's a word with C and ends with E. It's not the weather, guys. It's the and it will have a huge impact on the global right? It's stupid, but these days you can't say certain things anymore because your videos get demonetized. And I already had that problem. For the ones that are new here, I made a video about ice core samples where scientists have found these ice core samples, or they have taken ice core samples from the University of Washington and Oregon and other countries in Antarctica and in Greenland, and they found traces of supervolcanic eruptions, big eruptions, because these layers of ashes were lying on the snow and on the ice, and then more snow was coming, more ice was forming. So you could see these layers, and they could make their calculations, and they could see how the was changed, how people started being like, right? For thousands of years or hundreds of years. And that's all that I said in this video. And my video got demonetized since then. you know, you have to, when you upload your video, you have to say, is there something that advertisers might be worried about? And I said, no, nothing. It's a harmless video, no violence, no nothing. But that was the problem. And since then, whenever I uploaded a video, I wasn't able to set it free right away. I had to wait 30 minutes because there were now, since I was not honest with this video not being disturbing for advertisers, they made me wait 30 minutes because they needed to run checks, and they kept doing this until now. So whenever there's a volcanic eruption or Iceland erupts, I couldn't be that fast. I was delayed for half an hour. That's why I'm saying this. It's kind of insane, but it is what it is. So, but you know what I'm talking about. So there would be a shortage of rainfall for a period of, and now you might be shocked, guys, for a period of 3 to 4, what's your guess? Days, month, years, decades? Years. It's not as bad as decades, but it would trigger huge trouble. Famine and wars, and making water a very, very precious resource. And that would mean that global water needs would have to be met not by rainwater, but by groundwater reserves. You get what I'm hinting at? And that's why some scientists are saying, well, we should not touch our groundwater. We should leave it there for bad days. What the scientists are saying, every country should keep emergency reserves for 2 to 3 years. So maybe they should start building more infrastructure to save water in like areas that are not a lake that is exposed to ashfall and stuff like this, or to droughts, sun shining on it like they have in California. They're trying to put black balls on the lake so that the sunlight is reflected. Maybe mankind needs to invent other things. But the scientists are saying, unfortunately, this is not what we're doing. We're not doing this. So in so many countries, so much groundwater is being used. Many, many illegal wells. I can give you an example in Turkey, for example. 550,000 wells and 120,000 illegal wells. Same in California, where they're planting marijuana, illegal farms. Interesting, right? If you don't have water, you can't grow food. And if there's ashes in the air, that blocks the sunlight. That's also another problem, because we call that volcanic winters that can come with that. And as I said, these ice core samples have proven that. So this is something we need to take serious, and let's just hope that this is not due for a very, very long time again. But eventually, most likely it will. So shouldn't we start to prepare for these volcanoes? Because, you know, this is not the only one. There are a few that can be quite drastic. And not only the so-called supervolcanoes, there's some others, right? Or if we have some simultaneous eruptions, for example. We had one in Iceland that was disrupting flights for a very long time. So it has happened in the past, and it will happen again. And since we've been so busy with Santorini and looking into things, I just wanted to close that loop a little bit and give you an insight of how significant that island is for the future. Significant in a bad way, if that happens, and how significant it was in the past already. So I hope you liked it, and if you did, guys, please leave this video a like. And if you want to support the channel any further, become a supporting member of the channel. There's a join button that you can click, or the link is in the description of this video, just underneath the video player. You can see this, and you can also go to my buymeacoffee.com/silky site. The link is also down there if you want to buy me some coffees to keep me going and support the channel this way. It's greatly appreciated for all you guys that are doing this with with your supers, your coffees, and your memberships. Welcome to all new members. I'm releasing just private stuff there, behind the scenes, updates, what I'm doing, funny stuff, rants, outtakes. Just check the playlist that I have only for members. If that speaks to you, become a supporting member of this channel. And stay safe. I see you very, very soon. And hey, check out the videos in the end screen. Bye-bye.